Charlie, thanks for coming on again. And what has been going through your mind as we're seeing all these rappers take these hits?
Oh, did you think there wasn't going to be a price to be paid at some point? I mean, come on. You did This stuff doesn't come for free, baby. You have to dance when they tell you to dance, and if you don't, then you get yourself into a whole lot of trouble with some very dangerous people. Now, a lot of these rappers are fake tough guys, right? They're maybe rapping about living in Compton, but living in Rancho Cucamonga like Snoop Dogg. So I don't know where the line is where it becomes like entertainment or whatnot. But I met the real Freeway Rick Ross at a Narcapulco, and had a good conversation with him. You talk about a rapper who stole his name and stole his identity, essentially hijacked it, and so there's a lot of fraud and a lot of fakery going on in the rap industry. Always has been. And I think that for some people now, they're getting a view of something that they had never really considered before, that maybe some of their heroes weren't really who they said they were.
Right. And we saw it with Diddy get hit, and there was rumors and stuff going around about him for a very long time. But we looked at Jay-Z, the amount of the billions of dollars worth of deals he's involved in, owning all these different stakes in all of these different companies and stuff, the NFL deal. And then we saw the NFL back him up. And it seems to me now they've tried to destroy this woman, this Jane Doe, who made this allegation against him. It's like the club has let Diddy, fall, but they're rallying around Jay-Z. Do you think that is something that can sustain? Because we had a lady on last night called Jaguar Wright, and she said they're putting a finger in a dam with Jay-Z.
Yeah,
and that dam's going to burst. What do you think?
Yeah, they're protecting him until they're not. He's completely disposable as well. They'll throw him to the wolves as soon as it suits their purposes and as soon as it distracts away from them. We've talked about this before, about who really pulls the strings in the music industry. It's not these guys. I mean, these guys are the front people that get you interested in it, and they're artists as well as moguls and entrepreneurs, and all of these deals seem to happen. So easy to just start your own vodka company, right? I mean, so easy to just get acquired for $1 billion. All these deals are sort of magically happen as long as you're playing ball. But as soon as things start to go the other way, you find out that the level of support isn't what you thought it was. And in fact, with these guys are going to wind up, the end of their career is one thing. This is potentially the end of their freedom too. And what they've done is they done got themselves caught in their own mousetrap.
Yeah, you've touched on a salient point there, because Sak Vodka, that was part of the $1 billion that Diageo paid Diddy. And what did Diddy do? Turn around and sued them for racism and demanded more rights and more money. They're almost 10% owned by BlackRock. Diageo's worth 55 billion US British pounds.
It just shows it's a little club, and they're all working in the same with the same group of people. They've got the same investment bankers. They've got the same management. So this is a dirty little business. It works well as long as you keep everything under wraps, and sometimes people can make it a long way in this. I think that Diddy became his own worst enemy because his behavior was reprehensible, and you can only hide that for so long. And I mean, I think of the things that I saw when I was bartending in the 90s, when there were no video, no cell phone cameras and whatnot. This is the new era. Everything is documented. I mean, the idea that you could be so brazen about that shows that he was completely out of touch. He was an arrogant narcissist who thought he was above the law, and he forgot that the entrapment game that he's running on people has been run on him. he's as caught as everybody else. So he's going to find out the hard way. I think.
So you mentioned something important as well earlier about these guys are all just front people. Most of them got fake backstories, but there are some real players behind them. I'm going to head off a bunch of questions that are going to come in about this because we're going to beat them to it. We had Professor Hamamoto on the other night. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he spent his entire life researching intelligence and rap and academia. Anyway, he said that there's a hostile takeover. And that's why Diddy and Jay-Z, they're pawns on the chessboard. And the viewers were asking, who's behind it? Who's behind it? And he said, these are families you will never even heard of that control the banks. So when you dropped in earlier that you said there's an invisible hand here, what did you mean by that? How high up does this go?
Well, I mean, directly above these guys, I would put Clive Davis. He's a well-known operator. He's not in the shadows. He's not a family you wouldn't have heard of. He's very well known. He's been involved in a lot of mysterious things over the years. A lot of people close to him wind up dead, and he has a lot of questions that need to be answered about his involvement in a variety of different events connected to musicians, and his role in being the puppet master is well known in Hollywood. And he's like he's just known as one of these guys that sort of, he's not a record label, he's a distributor, and the distributors have an enormous amount of power because of that. And so if you run the distribution networks of anything, really, I mean, just insert any supply chain there, but if you run the distribution networks, you've got a ton of power. And of course he had a ton of power, and sometimes you want to hold on to that, and sometimes the best way to do it is to have the goods on these people. And so there's no doubt that he was controlling a variety of people, not just limited to Diddy, but I mean, we know about his relationship with Whitney Houston and everything surrounding her death and his proximity to it, and the like. So this is a guy that you would, if you were rounding up suspects, this is one of the first people you'd drag down to the police station, but you're not going to, because he's Clive Davis and he is extremely well connected. You don't get to be 90 years old in Hollywood and survive being this brutal of a guy by not knowing, by not having a system in place to keep you out of trouble. So.
Indeed. All right. Anyone else that comes to mind, or above him, even above Clive?
Well, the money, of course. I mean, it's whoever controls the money here, and you see a lot of this now. There's been a ton of consolidation, especially industries like talent representation, IMG, Endeavor, consolidating, buying UFC. I mean, where are they getting their money from? Who's running that? Well, Rahm Emanuel's brother's running that, a hardcore Israeli. So, there's money flowing in from that direction too. And with that money comes terms and conditions, of course, in any sort of business investment. So these rappers aren't just people, they're assets. They're something that they're a revenue stream for a lot of these people. And it behooves them to invest in them early and groom them and get them and open the doors for them and put them in a position to be successful, because they make a lot of money from these guys. So, but it's a dirty game. And at some point when you have to cut bait, you let them take the heat for it and they disappear, and they're on to their next victim.